She believed her family history was buried forever, forgotten in the pages of time. But on a silent afternoon, amidst the smell of old wood and dust in the air, his hands touched something unexpected, a hidden diary forgotten at the bottom of a trunk. The leather cover was worn, the pages yellowed with age, but the words written there still pulsed with strength. Each line seemed to whisper long-kept secrets, secrets of love, of pain, and of something even greater. What seemed like just an old notebook would soon reveal itself to be the key to a lost inheritance, a legacy capable of transforming not only your life but the destiny of your entire family. And as her eyes ran through the first few pages, she didn't know she was about to open the doors to a mystery, a path full of clues, revelations, and choices that could change everything forever. It was an old house with creaky windows and furniture that held memories from generations ago. The walls marked by time bore, damp stains and small cracks, but every detail seemed to whisper stories. The wooden floor, worn by so many footsteps of people who were no longer there, creaked beneath the girl's feet, as if greeting her with every movement. She spent her holidays in that place, in the company of her grandmother. Between innocent laughter, simple cakes fresh from the oven, and afternoons where the silence was broken only by the bird song, there was an atmosphere of peace, as if time there were slower. In hallways hanging on crooked nails, old portraits showed serious, distant-looking faces, gazes that somehow seemed to follow every step. And the girl, even without completely understanding, felt that there was something in that house, something that could not be explained just by the stories her grandmother told. In that simple environment full of faded portraits and forgotten memories, she had no idea she was about to discover something that would change her life forever. Everything seemed normal until the day she, curious, decided to explore the attic. The air there was heavy, dense, laden with dust, and the smell of aged wood. Among the disorganized boxes and seemingly forgotten objects, his eyes found a trunk, an old wooden trunk with rusty hardware, almost hidden in the darkest corner of the attic. His heart raced. She couldn't explain why, but there was something about that chest that seemed to call to her. Her hands trembled as she lifted the heavy lid, which opened with a dry click, echoing like a secret finally revealed. Inside were old fabrics, loose letters, and beneath it all, a leather-bound notebook. Time had left deep marks. The cover was scratched, the corners were frayed, but it still resisted, as if it had fought against the years to protect what it carried inside. She picked it up carefully, like someone holding a treasure. As he opened the first page, he smelled the strong smell of old paper. The handwritten letters were fragile, slightly faded, but charged with emotion. And he soon realized this was not just an ordinary diary. With each page turned, her heart beat faster. There were stories of her great-grandmother's life, memories of a distant time, parties, loves, goodbyes. But between the lines, enigmatic phrases appeared, words that seemed out of place, almost as if they were codes. What was lost will one day be found. Beneath the roots, the secret remains. Only those who dare to seek will understand the true legacy. The girl's eyes widened. It wasn't just about memories. Those pages hid secrets, carefully placed riddles, almost like clues left on purpose for someone to find. And in that instant, something changed inside her. Childhood curiosity turned into restlessness. she knew she couldn't just close the diary and go back to her routine. There was something bigger there, something that needed to be revealed. And the more I read, the more I felt my great-grandmother's presence. It was as if through those words an ancient voice reached across time to guide her. She took a deep breath, closed her eyes for a moment, and understood that she was facing something that went far beyond her imagination, a path full of mysteries, hidden memories, and perhaps a lost inheritance. But what did it all mean? What had great-grandmother hidden so carefully? And why had she found that diary? These questions echoed in his mind like a call impossible to ignore. And the audience, like the girl, is now faced with the same dilemma. Move forward with this mystery, or close the diary and pretend nothing was discovered? What would you do? At first it seemed like just a memory of ancient times. Simple, almost poetic stories. Family celebrations lit by oil lamps, weddings filled with music and dancing, innocent smiles amidst difficult times. Between the fragile lines there was also the weight of pain. Losses during the war, silent goodbyes, nights of uncertainty ease her heart. The great-grandmother wrote, something started to change. Among the daily narratives, strange words appeared. Incomplete sentences, interrupted passages, discrete symbols scrawled in the corners of the page. It was as if someone had purposely left hidden messages, camouflaged among ordinary memories. One of the excerpts caught his attention. What was lost will one day be found. Only those who have the courage to seek will understand. The girl frowned. Was it just a symbolic reminder, metaphor for hope, or a real intentional message addressed to someone from the future? Her heart began to race. For a moment, I wanted to believe it was just my imagination. After all, the diary was from a distant time. Perhaps my great-grandmother simply wrote poetically, trying to make sense of her suffering. But the feeling that there was something more wouldn't leave her alone. With each page turned, new clues emerged. Seemingly loose sentences, but when put together, they formed a line of reasoning. Under the tree that saw generations grow, the secret remains. The walls hold more than memories. They hide what could not be said. The key is not made of iron. It is made of blood. The girl felt a shiver run down her skin. It was impossible to ignore. That diary wasn't just a life record. It was a carefully constructed enigma, perhaps a map. A secret so carefully guarded that it had spanned generations, waiting for the right moment to be discovered. And then came the chore. Should she really continue? Following these clues meant delving into a mystery that might reveal things she wasn't prepared to know. What if it was dangerous? What if your family was hiding something really painful? But there was also another voice inside her, the voice of curiosity, of courage, of the desire to understand the legacy that her great-grandmother had left. As if, somehow, fate had chosen her to decipher those messages. Each new reading was a mixture of anxiety and fear. Anxiety about the next step, fear of what you might find. She felt her hands sweat, her heart race, and sometimes she had to stop, take a deep breath, and close her eyes before continuing. The diary seemed to test his courage. Each track demanded more of her, and deep down the girl knew. The further she went, the less she could go back. But what she still didn't understand was that those hidden words weren't just riddles. They were invitations. Invitations to discover something that could. changed not only her life but the fate of her entire family. And then, one night, as he reread a passage marked by his great-grandmother's shaky handwriting, he felt something different. It was as if the words leaped off the page, as if the time between them and reality had finally snapped. She closed the diary slowly. He looked around the dark room, lit only by the faint moonlight coming through the window, and he realized the search had already begun. It was no longer a matter of choice. It was as if every phrase, every symbol, every riddle was an invisible hand pulling her forward, leading her toward something greater. But where would that lead her? Could it really be a hidden inheritance, or just a painful revelation buried in the past? She didn't know. And maybe that was exactly what made it all so irresistible. And the public, along with her, feels the same uneasiness. The heart races, the mind fills with questions. And the big question remains suspended. Will she have the courage to continue? It was on a rainy morning that everything was revealed. The whole house was asleep, but she couldn't close her eyes. The last sentences of the diary echoed in his mind like a call impossible to ignore. The rain beat against the ancient windows. The wind blew through the cracks, bringing an almost human lament, and the girl's heart beat faster with each clap of thunder. It was as if the night itself conspired to push her forward. She grabbed a flashlight, hugged the diary to her chest, and walked outside, feeling the early morning chill bite into her skin. Every step on the wet grass seemed to resonate like a secret being revealed. The destination was clear, the abandoned garden, forgotten over the years, but always mentioned between the lines of those pages. And there, in the center of the darkness, stood the old oak tree, imposing, silent, a guardian who seemed to watch generations pass by, keeping within himself that which no one else had dared touch. The flashlight trembled in his hands. The oak's twisted trunk seemed to tell stories, and its roots, thick and deep, held something greater than any memory. The girl took a deep breath. Fear almost made her retreat, but there was something stronger inside her. The feeling that she was about to honor her great-grandmother, to complete a mission left unfinished. With trembling hands, he began to dig beside the roots, where the earth was heavy and wet. The sound of the improvised shovel against the wet ground mixed with the sound of the rain until a different noise echoed. He had touched something solid. His heart raced. His hands, now muddy, carefully pulled out a small wooden box, weathered but still sturdy. It was as if it had been waiting for just that moment to be revealed. As he opened it, the night air seemed to stop. Inside, there were not only yellowed documents and old jewelry of undeniable value. There were also letters carefully folded, still protected as if they were the real treasure. His great-grandmother's letters, fragile but full of life, leaped before his eyes. And with each line read, the girl felt her heart tighten. It was not just a report of pain, nor just a description of material goods. It was a message, an inheritance far greater than any gold or wealth. In the letters, the great-grandmother spoke of courage, faith, and hope. He spoke of how a family's true wealth was not in the possessions they accumulated, but in the stories, the bonds, the strength that was passed down from generation to generation. He spoke of unconditional love, of sacrifices made in silence, of dreams that survived even in the midst of the greatest storms. And it was then that the girl understood. The box, the documents, the jewelry, All of it was valuable, yes, but it was not the center of the inheritance. The true legacy was in those words, in the voice of a woman who had crossed time to remind her descendants of who they were, where they came, and what they could never forget. The girl cried. Tears mingled with the rain that ran down her face, but they were tears of revelation, of belonging, of finding herself. At that moment, standing before the old oak tree, she understood that it was not just about material wealth, it was about identity, about belonging to a story bigger than your own, about honoring the roots that sustained her, even if the world tried to erase them. And as she clutched the cards to her chest, a certainty was born within her. The search was over, but the real journey had just begun, because that inheritance was not just hers. It belonged to everyone who carried the same blood, the same memory, the same story. And maybe, just maybe, it was also a call for the whole world to reflect on what really matters. And so, on that rainy dawn, under the firm roots of an oak tree that held more than just earth, a new seed was planted. The seed of recognition, truth, and strength of a family that would never be forgotten. The diary handed him not just a lost inheritance, but a profound sense of continuity. As she closed that old notebook, her hands still trembling with emotion, she understood that the greatest treasure could not fit in wooden boxes, nor could it be measured in coins or shiny jewels. His great-grandmother, with all her pain, hope, and courage, had left something much greater, a mission, a legacy, a history that needed to be honored and kept alive. The words written on yellowed pages crossed time like seeds thrown into the wind, which now blossomed in that girl's heart. They weren't just phrases. They were memories filled with love, silent advice, warnings, and an invitation to never forget who she was. At that moment, as she looked at the letters kept next to the jewelry, she felt that each line was a hug from a woman who had lived before her, but who somehow was still present. A hug that said, "You are not alone. You are part of something bigger." Tears fell, but they were not of sadness. They were of gratitude. Gratitude for having been chosen to carry that secret, for having had the courage to follow the clues to the end, and for having found the answer that we so often seek outside, when, in fact, it has always been within us. Because at that moment she realized that true heritage was not just in material goods, but in the stories that endure, in the roots that sustain us, and in the memories that can never be erased, even if time tries to hide them. The old oak tree under the early morning rain seemed to silently witness this revelation, and as she hugged those letters, the girl felt as if each drop that fell from the sky was a confirmation. The cycle was complete. It wasn't just about her great-grandmother. It wasn't just about the past. It was about the present and the future. Now it was up to her to keep that flame alive, to pass on the stories, values, and love she found hidden in the pages of a diary. Because a material inheritance can be lost, but an inheritance of faith, courage, and memory, that remains forever. And perhaps deep down, this is the true meaning of existence. Not to accumulate possessions, but to leave marks. Don't build castles of stone, but plant roots deep enough to withstand the test of time. As she walked back home with the box against her chest, the girl was no longer the same. He entered the garden like a curious child, but I returned from there as the guardian of a story. And the most beautiful, at that moment, it wasn't just the girl who carried this revelation, but all of us. because somehow everyone has a diary hidden in their own story. Every family has secrets, pains, roots, and memories that shaped who we are today. And perhaps life, at some point, will also place us before this call, to remember where we came from, to understand where we should go. Dramatic pause, soft and reflective tone, because the true legacy is not in the riches that remain, stories that endure. And you, have you ever thought about the legacy your family left you? And what's more, what legacy will you leave to those who come after you?